Russia's defence ministry says it's reached a deal to evacuate wounded Ukrainian soldiers from the besieged Azovstal steel plant in the southeastern port of Mariupol. Moscow says the ceasefire was in effect and that a humanitarian corridor would be established to allow injured fighters to leave the steelworks, though they would be taken to a town held by pro-Moscow separatists for treatment. Ukrainian forces in the northeast have mounted a counter-attack, pushing Russian troops away from the second largest city, Kharkiv. There's also heavy fighting in the eastern region of Luhansk, where residents are still reluctant to leave.
Ukrainian tanks and heavy artillery on their way to the Luhansk region. Russia has increasingly turned its attention to eastern Ukraine, but the Ukrainians are making preparations. One of the cities the artillery is going to is Lysychansk. Not everyone there is ready to leave, despite the Russian threat.
Tell me, seriously, what are you doing here with the children? Do you understand that this is a war zone?
Yes.
Right now, we have to avoid shelling and make our way through a very difficult situation in order to reach the people. But people just sit here and think everything will be fine. Unfortunately, everything is not fine.
Angelina Abakumova has been living in a bunker for over a month with her 2 children. She doesn't believe the police can bring them to safety. I know so many people who were evacuated and then simply dropped off on the street. I do not think leaving is an option. Only 20 kilometers away lies the town of Rubizhne. Russian state TV claims that it's under Russian control. But the Ukrainian military says it still has reason to celebrate. It says its troops have pushed Russia from the northeastern city of Kharkiv and advanced as far as the border with Russia. NATO has said that Ukraine can win this war.
Russia's war in Ukraine is not going as Moscow had planned. They failed to take Kiev. They are pulling back from around Kharkiv. Their major offensive in Donbass has stalled. Russia is not achieving its strategic objectives.
And Ukraine has received another moral boost from the country's win in the Eurovision Song Contest. Even in the most dire conditions, like here in a bunker below the Azovstal steelworks in Mariupol, some soldiers perform the winning song.
Well, DW correspondent Fanny Fashar is in Kyiv. I asked her about the deal announced by Russia that would see injured Ukrainian soldiers evacuated from the Mariupol steelworks to Russian-controlled territory.
Well, that offer definitely raised some eyebrows among ordinary Ukrainians here, because they cannot imagine, regardless whether these Azov regiment soldiers are wounded or not, that they really want to hand themselves basically over to the aggressor, to Russia, that's been pounding the Azov steel plant for weeks now. However, I've been speaking to a sister of one of these soldiers just yesterday, and she said that people really inside that steel plant are in such dire condition that maybe this could be a way to evacuate people, but really the last resort. In fact, a lot of people are hoping, the relatives, that there's a third country, for example, Turkey, and Turkey made that offer as well, to extract soldiers, bring them to Turkey as long as this war continues. Also, if you zoom in on that offer, Russia basically says, we will make sure that there is a humanitarian corridor, but the soldiers, the wounded soldiers and medics will be evacuated to Russian-controlled territory about 40 kilometers from Mariupol. For now, what we know is, from a social media post basically, that a senior commander of the Azov regiment is saying that a decision is currently being made about saving lives. Now, does it mean that the siege is over? There's no word about surrendering. And I really think that the next hours are going to be crucial in many ways, whether those wounded soldiers say they are ready to give it a try, to say so, even though they risk their lives with that as well, not knowing what Russian forces are going to do with them, or are they going to stay inside that steel plant? After all, these people here have been described as heroes trying to defend what's left of Ukrainian-controlled Mariupol, and that's not much.
And how would you say the Russian offensive is proceeding, especially with its apparent refocusing on Donbass?
ever since basically the assault here on Kiev, where I am right now, in the Kiev region, on Chernihiv and the northern parts of Ukraine didn't work out, to really refocus on the Donbas region, which Vladimir Putin, the president in Russia, described just recently once again as motherland, clearly implying they want to fight for the Donbas region. Now, as the momentum clearly shifts towards Ukraine, because after all, during the past couple of days, they've made some serious advancements in the Kharkiv region as well, which is also strategically quite important for Russia, neighboring the Donbas region. It seems like the tide seems to be turning for the Ukrainian forces. After all, they were seen as quite inferior when this war has begun 3 months ago. So all the mobilization there from Russian forces is right now in the Donbas region, and this is unfortunately where civilians are really bearing the brunt of heavy shelling. We are talking about civilian infrastructure, about schools, about hospitals being attacked, and this is where the entire war has been shifting right now, apart from Mariupol, apart from Kherson, Odessa and the southern parts of Ukraine. However, all around, certainly nobody expected, in fact, that the Russian invasion is basically going to derail, as we see right now happening. But does it mean the end of the war soon? In fact, this is the only thing that both Russia and Ukraine can agree on at this point, that nobody knows how long this war is going to continue.
OK, thank you for that, DW correspondent Fanin Bashar in Kyiv.